Well, so South Africa has taken Israel to the International Court, the ICU, on charges of genocide. And so today we're going to just go over this video. I want to just react to South Africa's basically their claims that Israel is genociding the Palestinian people. Now, if you don't know what's been going on in the Gaza Strip for the past 3 months, basically Israel was attacked on October the 7th. And in retaliation to being attacked by Hamas, Israel has been going on like basically 100-day, 100-day bombing campaign of the Gaza Strip. It basically has made the Gaza Strip uninhabitable. There's almost 20,000 Palestinians been killed. Close to 9,000 to 10,000 of those are children. I think 4,000 or 5,000 of those are women. About 60,000 to 70,000 that have been injured or maimed. A lot of people are still missing up under the rubble of the destruction that Israel has caused. And Israel is saying that basically the reason for doing this is to wipe out Hamas. That they're going to basically keep doing this until Hamas is completely obliterated. But in my humble opinion, my personal opinion, I think Israel has basically set itself on a collision course with, it ain't gonna look good for them in the future, because we live in a different time. We don't live in a time to where now you can just tell people anything you want them to know and they're just going to believe it. We live in the age of information. People can easily go onto the web. We no longer have to rely on the major networks for our news. And so basically, Israel has been trying their best to stop, any report that comes out, not seeing them in a flattering light and painting the Palestinians as being sympathetic. They've just been trying to silence it. They don't killed over 100 and something odd journalists. Had it be any other nation, can you imagine this being an African nation doing this to a European country? Man, NATO will be all on them. I mean, look at what happened between Russia and Ukraine and how NATO just jumped in and intervened that, and how did that work out? Right? So anywho, I want to play this video reacting to the South African lawyers bringing Israel before the ICU court. So let's just go ahead and get right into that. Let me change the way my screen is being viewed here. Let me minimize myself and put them boys up on the big screen. Let's get at it.
Of the court, it is a privilege to appear before the court on behalf of South Africa. I will address Israel's genocidal intent. At this stage, the court is not required to determine that the only inference to be drawn from the available evidence is genocidal, to order provisional measures, as that is to decide the merits. Rather, the assessment of the existence of an intent to destroy could be made by the court only at the stage of the examination of the merits. That some of the alleged acts may also amount to atrocities other than genocide does not exclude the finding of plausible acts of genocide. Madam President, South Africa is not alone in drawing attention.
So basically, it seems like they're trying to charge Israel with genocidal intent, meaning that basically the whole purpose of this campaign is to genocide the Palestinian people. Of course, Israel says differently, but, we'll get into that later.
To Israel's genocidal rhetoric against Palestinians in Gaza. 15 United Nations special rapporteurs and 21 members of the United Nations working groups have warned that what is happening in Gaza reflects a genocide in the making and an overt intent to destroy the Palestinian people under occupation. Israel has a genocidal intent against the Palestinians in Gaza. That is evident from the way in which Israel's military attack is being conducted, which has been described by Ms. Hassim SC. It is systematic in its character and form. The mass displacement of the population of Gaza, headed into areas where they continue to be killed, and the deliberate creation of conditions that, quote, lead to a slow death, unquote.
So one of the things that's being that is Israel claims that they're wanting the Palestinian people to move further south. Problem is, every area that the Palestinian people move into, Israel then comes and bombs. And they're saying, no, we're not trying to kill civilians. You know, we're just out there Hamas, but you don't kill more civilians than you have Hamas. And it seems very, throw the rock, hide your hand type of deal. We're not trying to wipe out the Palestinian people, but instead, you know what I'm saying, we're basically wiping out the Palestinian people. So it's like, believe what we tell you and not what you see is going on.
There is also the clear pattern of conduct, the targeting of family homes and civilian infrastructure, laying waste to vast areas of Gaza, and the bombing, shelling, and sniping of men, women, and children where they stand, the destruction of the health infrastructure, and lack of access to humanitarian assistance. So much so.
That's another thing that Israel's been doing. Israel's been bombing the hospitals. And their reason for bombing the hospitals is saying, oh, Hamas is using them as a base of operations. So they basically bombed all the hospitals. They cut off the fresh water supply. They're not allowing any type of aid to come into Gaza. And they're saying that, oh, but it's not our intent to harm the civilians. Even if you're not dropping bombs on the civilians, the fact that you're stopping them from having adequate health care, the fact that they can't even have running water. Do you know what it means to be able to have water? Not just to drink, but to be able to cook, wash, clean, all of those things. The fact that they're stopping them from having access to clean water. I mean, like I said, believe what we're saying and not what we're doing.
That as we stand today, 1% of the Palestinian population in Gaza has been systematically decimated since 7 October. These two elements alone are capable of evidencing Israel's genocidal intent in relation to the whole or part of the Palestinian population in Gaza. However, third, there is an extraordinary feature in this case, that Israel's political leaders, military commanders, and persons holding official positions have systematically and in explicit terms declared their genocidal intent. And these statements are then repeated by soldiers on the ground in Gaza as they engage in the destruction of Palestinians and the physical infrastructure of Gaza. We show this third element next. Israel's special genocidal intent is rooted in the belief that, in fact, the enemy is not just the military wing of Hamas, or indeed Hamas generally, but is embedded in the fabric of Palestinian life in Gaza. On 7 October, in a televised address, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared war on Gaza, and I quote, Israel has clearing out the communities that have been infiltrated by terrorists. And he warned of an unprecedented price to be paid by the enemy. There are more than 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza. Israel is the occupying power in control of Gaza. It controls entry and the internal movements of inside Gaza. And qua Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu exercises overall command over the Israeli Defense Force and in turn, the Palestinian.
That's something that I think these Christian Zionists don't understand. A lot of Christians speak out of ignorance and don't understand the situation on ground in Gaza. Israel controls everything about the Palestinians' life. Everything. Israel is one of the foremost powerfulest militaries in the world. They're supplied by us. They have our latest and greatest and best and everything. That's really the only reason why Israel's been able to carry out this campaign is because we're supplying them with all their ammunitions. And there's no way. I mean, at best, even them launching rockets into Israel, at best, you're going to kill a few hundred. I'm not trying to trivialize that because any death is bad, but Israel is basically, Hamas doesn't have the Palestinians don't have a state. They don't even have the means to fight back and defend themselves. This is not a war. It is not a war. It is just Israel saying, you know what? We wiping y'all out. I mean, they don't have no air defense. They don't have no. I mean, they may have like some guerrillas when it comes to the Hamas and all of those things, but it's actually not a war. It's not. It's not a war.
Palestinians in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu, in his address to the Israeli forces on 28 October 2023, preparing for the invasion of Gaza, urged the soldiers to remember what Amalek has done to you. This refers to the biblical command by God to Saul
to wipe
for
out
the retaliatory destruction of an entire group of people known as the Amalekites, put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. The genocidal invocation.
God told Saul to wipe out everything. Everything.
To Amalek was anything but idle. It
Don't come in here no more.
was repeated by Mr. Netanyahu in a letter to the Israeli Armed Forces on 3 November 2023. Madam President, let the Prime Minister's words speak for themselves.
Has done to you, says our Holy Bible, and we do remember and we are fighting our brave troops and combatants who are now in Gaza or around Gaza and in and
Guess they're having some technical
The
difficulties.
Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Israel's parliament, has called for the erasure of the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. The Defense Force agrees. On 9 October, the Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, gave a situation update to the army, where he said that as Israel was imposing a complete siege on Gaza, there would be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel.
Wow.
Everything would be closed because Israel is fighting human animals.
Wow.
Speaking to troops on the Gaza border, he instructed them that he has released all the restraints and that Gaza won't return to what it was before.
You know, the only way that you can actually take our actions against other human beings to where you're killing babies and women and children and just bombing them like they're nothing is that you have to reduce them to less than humans. He said we're fighting human animals. Now we know something about that here in Africa, in America, especially being black in the African American community. I mean, being a black man in the African American community. That's a lot of times how we're treated. We're not seen quite as human. So when you're not seen as human, man, it can subject you to anything, and it clears their conscience. Like, hey, these are not people. These are animals. We got to go in here. We got to handle them like animals. It's like that scene from Star Wars when Anakin killed the Tusken Raiders. He said they're like animals, so I slaughtered them like animals. I might include that clip in here. But that's basically what happened. That's basically what Israel is doing. They've seen the Palestinians less than human. I mean, even all the people that that support Israel, they always highlight October 7th. And no one has ever said that October 7th was cool. It was a good thing for people to do. No, it wasn't. It was horrible. I mean, you killing innocent civilians and killing innocent people. But 1,300, and many of those that has been reported were killed by Israeli friendly fire. You had hundreds taken captives, but that's around about 1,500 people in total. Israel has killed 20,000 people. 20,000 people. And half of those women and children. And when you talk to people that support Israel, they talk about the Palestinians like, oh, it's nothing. Oh, Israel is doing these things and Israel is doing those things. It's flat out wrong. And kudos to South Africa for standing up. And I know why this means so much to South Africa, because many people say that Israel is an apartheid state. I believe it, because I don't believe that you can go off and kill just people like this and not already see them as less than, and so South Africa has been a big proponent of Israel stopping their war in Gaza the way that Israel has been doing it. And I'm just amazed at the justification that we tell ourselves to treat people and kill people like we do. And America is equally complicit because we're the ones supply. So who's worse, the person that murdered the person or the person that gave the individual the gun to murder the people with? That's something that we need to think about. But I'm going to bring this part to a close, and I'll be back later with part 2.
We will eliminate everything. We will reach all places.